What's up, everyone? This is Ray DeLucci, host of the Repertoire Report. This is going to be a solo episode this week. Justin is traveling. He will be back next week, and I'm very certain you'll be interested in what we talk about. But for this week, wanted to cover a few different topics in the CPG / restaurant / food industry that I think are relevant, that are important. Kind of a slower news weekend as Mother's Day was here. We'll talk about some Mother's Day stuff as well. But just getting into this podcast, I think the first interesting thing. So if you don't know, if you've known me, you will know this, but I am from Buffalo, New York. Very proud of that. If you know anyone from Buffalo, we're very proud of the city, of our wings, and of course, the Buffalo Bills. And a Rochester-based supermarket exists up in the Northeast called Wegmans. Now, if you've ever been to Wegmans, it is a great supermarket. It is my favorite supermarket. They have a great in-house food program. They offer some of the best ingredients that are just accessible to everyday consumers. When I lived in the Northeast, when I lived in Buffalo or anywhere near a Wegmans, that'd be my go-to if I wanted to create something where I needed really niche ingredients or items that were a little bit harder to get. Wegmans often had them. I put Wegmans over Whole Foods. I put Wegmans over Trader Joe's, and it's on par with me for Aldi for different reasons. Aldi very much a budget pick, but nonetheless, Wegmans is up there. And if you've ever gone to Wegmans, they have a pretty solid sushi program. When it comes to grocery store sushi, I think they are the best at sushi. Their program is really in-depth. It offers a lot of different variety, and I think it's the best grocery store sushi out there. Now, you may be wondering on this Repertoire Report why I am bringing up a grocery store sushi concept from a Northeast Rochester-based brand. Well, that is because in New York City, Wegmans has opened Next Door. So what Next Door is a New York City sushi restaurant that has opened this last month. And so Eater reporting on this, a couple different places, but Eater on May 12th published an article called, "Who is this new Wegmans sushi restaurant even for? Next Door attempts to bring luxe sushi vibes with supermarket sensibilities to downtown Manhattan." And I just thought it was interesting. There's a quick quote. "Wegmans offers a 6-piece nigiri set for $52. By comparison, Moyo Soho's 8-piece nigiri in a roll is $42. Most of the sets at Sugarfish are under $60. In East Village Japanese restaurant, Sour Ahi offers a 90-minute omakase for $98 for all-you-can-eat sushi. Sure, some fish from Next Door comes from Tokyo's Toyuso Market, which would warrant a higher price, but it's not the first sushi place in town to source from there. This is all to say that Next Door is not expensive by New York sushi standards, but its restaurant trappings don't match its prices. Furthermore, when suburban supermarket Wegmans made its New York City debut in Brooklyn's Navy Yard in 2019, New Yorkers freaked out. The Rochester-based company followed with a Manhattan store at Astor Place in 2023, which included the plan to add its upscale sushi restaurant Next Door. In April, the new restaurant opened at 770 Broadway at East 9th Street, keeping true to its name by being stationed next to the grocery aisles." And then they continue. "The Next Door is a second location following the original concept. Many purports to be the market's take on contemporary Japanese cuisine." I looked at a lot of reviews for this concept, and it's pretty interesting. Eater goes on to say in their food section, "Next Door's actual menu takes a general Japanese-ish approach with lots of global ingredients and flavors. The $52 6-piece nigiri set is solid enough. The quality of the fish and seafood was good." And I just share this because, their takeaway, what they say is, ultimately, Next Door feels out of place in the heart of downtown New York, but also maybe that's the point. What else are we supposed to expect from an out-of-town supermarket opening its restaurant in New York City? In that light, wanting and asking for more from the upstate store's restaurant doesn't seem fair. I could see bringing my in-laws here as a safe across-the-board meal, but I wouldn't come here for a birthday dinner or even a solo meal out. New York is awash with so many crowd-pleasing and envelope-pushing restaurants, and this for now is neither. When it comes to fish, there are just too many better omakase and sushi options in the neighborhood already. Rip Kmart, you would have loved Next Door. Very, very funny. And that piece, I wanted to give credit. That piece was by Nadia Chowdhury, so awesome. I will leave a link to that. Nadia is an editor for Eater's Northeast region, so just so you all know. So when we go into Next Door, looking over their menu, Wegmans claims that their menu highlights the freshness of their ingredients, which they carefully source from around the world. Each dish is created with that goal in mind and to deliver a truly unforgettable eating experience. And so, they have a raw and chilled section, snack salads and small plates, nigiri and sashimi plates, and then it goes on to the rolls, the robata, the veggies. And then, funny enough, it being Wegmans, they have nostalgic Next Door. So bolognese with cavatelli and creamy tomato sauce, truffle mac and cheese with fusilli and crispy panko, and then a Next Door burger with miso pulled beef, pickles, cabbage, slaw, and American cheese on a brioche bun with truffle fry. And of course, you can add shaved fresh black truffle to any entree or pasta at your discretion. So I read all that to say that I found it very interesting because I do love Wegmans. Wegmans is a part of my childhood, a part of growing up, the subs, just going there with grandparents, all that. That being said, I find it very interesting that a grocery chain like Wegmans is expanding into restaurants. And I just wonder why. Like, what is the need to do this? Like, why is Wegmans expanding into restaurants? And for me, I think the biggest thing to take away from it is the fact that as brands evolve, they need to be able to go ahead and offer more, share more to customers, and just be more. And so why I think Wegmans is doing this is, they're just expanding their brand. Brands need to attach to customers in different ways. And so maybe like for the sushi restaurant, it's not like the best in the city. It's not the most exciting. But if you know Wegmans and you see the logo and the symbol, maybe you're going to the next door because you know them or you feel more comfortable. And this is a more comfortable way for you to approach Japanese cuisine. It does help that this restaurant is literally right next to a Wegmans. So definitely it's like if you're shopping, you want a meal, you go over there. But I just think it's very interesting. You could also obviously have events there, and they are also having events. So for example, they say celebrate Mother's Day with us. So 3 to 8 p.m. You could have went there and had curated dishes, exquisite wine, pairings and handcrafted cocktails. They have a Father's Day cars and coffee event, wine classes, omakase dinners, 300 per person, and the list goes on. And so this expansion into restaurant, this expansion into brand building, I'm very interested into watching. A, because I'm a fan of Wegmans, but B, I want to it seems like reverse. Like Wegmans is this multi-million-dollar brand, supermarket brand, right? And then they're going into restaurants, which are historically low margin, not as profitable, not as much of a revenue driver as a grocery store is. So, Wegmans already has in-house cafes and restaurants and a very, very robust food program. So why do this? And I think very much it's to expand their portfolio, expand their brand, reach new consumers, and really imprint themselves into a market like New York City. And I almost wonder if, as they expand into larger cities, if they keep opening next door, it's like a companion piece to really introduce customers to the brand and get them to, take Wegmans very seriously. You look at a market like New York City and all of the different independent and local food shops, cheese shops, wine shops, and whatnot. How does Wegmans try to stack up to that? I guess they're trying that with a restaurant. Whether or not the restaurant is a success, I don't know. I can see it being a success due to the price points, due to what they're offering, and due to it being in New York City. I really am interested to see where this goes and where they take the concept. Wegmans opening up a restaurant, I think, is a risky move just due to the fact of how difficult restaurants are to operate. At the same time, it can be something that really introduces new customers to their brand and really helps elevate themselves to the next generation of people trying to choose a grocery store brand to buy into. At the same time, it's interesting because these are higher price points. These are luxury price points. And I wonder what that shift is like for the consumer, because for me, in my mind, Wegmans is a higher tiered grocery store. And while they have affordable options, much of their stuff is at a higher quality level, I would say, and their price reflects that. To give you an example, grew up lower income, going to Wegmans, we would never shop there. We always shopped at like Aldi or Save a Lot. Going to a Wegmans was for like premium ingredients or something that we wanted that was really nice. It wasn't for everyday groceries because of, my family's ability to purchase food at the time, what we could afford and what we couldn't afford. I wonder if the restaurant takes them even further in that step. And I really wanted just to dive into what the results of this are, what they feel they accomplish as the next year goes on, and we'll see what happens. But just wanted to share that first story. Next, to hire 375,000 people for the summer. This is reported over a few different sites, but I thought, CNN Business shared this morning. So McDonald's is seeking to hire up to 375,000 people ahead of the busy summer season. This is its biggest employment initiative in 5 years. 5 years being COVID. The hiring surge is focused on staffing up to its 13,000 U.S. restaurants as the company prepares to open 900 new locations over the next 2 years. This announcement was made at a restaurant in Ohio with Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRaymer. McDonald's is one of the biggest U.S. employers, with the company estimating that 1 in 8 Americans have worked for the chain. 800,000 people work at its U.S. restaurants. Although with this hiring initiative won't increase that number. Similar to the other fast food restaurants, McDonald's struggles with 100% turnover rates and is regularly replacing departing employees with new ones. They don't typically, and it's noted here that they don't typically announce large-scale employee enlistment programs. You look at companies like Chipotle, they're hiring, I believe, like 70,000 for burrito season, and obviously UPS and Amazon hiring more. But McDonald's USA president Joe Erlinger said Monday, investing in the company's workforce is a win-win, adding that it makes the company more competitive while also positively impacting the economic and social conditions of the communities where we do business. And that being said, the employment initiative comes after McDonald's recently reported its second consecutive quarter of decline as customers pull back their spending. So this is where I think it's interesting to see, a company like McDonald's, it announces its hiring push, and with everything going on in the economy, they had just mentioned consumer spending being down, business being down for them quarter over quarter. How does this translate? Are they actually going to make all these hires? Will these hires be on their payrolls long? Will they be utilized efficiently? And the reason why I look at a company like McDonald's is because you can see trends macro viewpoint with them, whether it be how many they hire, how the turnover rates, everything's reported publicly. So this is just a story to keep an eye on for me, because the economic conditions right now are very uncertain, very, very, very uncertain. You see menu pricing increases. They increased in April. We'll get into that in a second. You're seeing consumers pull back on spending on snacks and unneeded foods. You see an increase in GLP-1 consumers and their wants, looking for higher protein items, looking for healthier items. McDonald's not fitting the bill of really either of those when it comes to the average GLP-1 consumer. McDonald's announcing this seems like a PR move more than anything, and I'd be really, really interested to see what exactly happens with their hiring and where it goes and how successful their Q3 busy season is going to be. So that's just something I want to keep an eye on. And I think the biggest thing for me is just really watching restaurants and watching the Restaurant Performance Index and the National Restaurant Association of this next year. While the markets are swinging back and forth, there is the very real reality that the everyday consumer is worried. They feel that their wallet's being squeezed tighter, and there are a lot of market conditions that are leading to consumers spending less and less on items that they don't need or snacks that they don't need. So really, really interested in this. I was kind of surprised at how many people they plan on hiring, simply because of the economic conditions that are facing a company like McDonald's going into the summer season. But they seem confident. They seem like, this is going to be a win-win. I have my doubts. I'm skeptical of that, and I really wonder what's going to happen. But we'll see what happens, and just something to keep an eye on. Continuing with this idea of consumers and pricing, National Restaurant News is reporting that menu prices increased in April for the third month in a row. And conversely, grocery prices fell for the first time in months, driven by lower egg prices. Hot button topic. Eggs are finally lower, so that was interesting to see. 4% during the month. But conversely, menu price inflation is up to 3.9% after rising 0.4% in April, matching the same increases in March and February and outpacing the fourth quarter average of 0.26%. Lower grocery prices were driven in large part by a 12.7% monthly decline in egg prices, though they remain about 50% versus last year. Nation's Restaurant News also reporting that menu prices were driven largely by full-service meals, which rose 0.6% over the month, matching April's trend line, and 4.3% on the year, up from 4.1% in April. The index for limited service meals rose 0.3% during the month versus a 0.2% uptick in April, and are up 3.4% versus last year. Finishing off, April marked the 25th month in a row in which restaurant pricing outpaced grocery supermarket pricing, with the gap between the categories widening since March. This schism is largely cited for muted traffic in the restaurant industry. According to new data from Revenue Management Solutions, domestic quick-service restaurant traffic declined by 1.7% year over year in April. And another survey by RMS found that in Q1, 40% of U.S. diners said they spend less of their disposable income on restaurants, while 1 in 4 consumers report buying meals at grocery stores more often, overwhelmingly citing better value for money. So this goes into the conversation Justin and I were having last week, and I apologize for all the percents and the numbers, but this is very important. This is very important for you all if you're in restaurants. It's very important for people outside of restaurants. This idea of raising prices, of using economic headwinds or drawbacks, I should say, to be able to raise your prices to a more fair rate. We know that restaurants are operating on margins that are razor thin. We know that their prices are actually lower than they should be. So there was this window, I believe, in the last month and a half with all the craziness over tariffs, where restaurants rose their prices, and you can see they've continued to rise. They've continued to raise their prices. But now at the same time, if inflation's going down, if prices are going down, in your restaurant, you're still raising prices, you actually might be caught up in some negative PR, or you may be seen in a more negative light, or you may see a drawback in consumer spending, because now, unfortunately, with how quick and how uncertain the economy is right now, and how uncertain everything is within consumer spending, the mood is flipped in a sense. And so you're seeing drawbacks on people with their discretionary spending out of restaurants. They're getting more value at, grocery stores such as Wegmans or Aldi or Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. We talked last week about the frozen pizza, premium frozen pizza being something that's really interesting. So all this to say, I think that if you're a restaurant operating right now, you have to be very, very mindful of raising your prices, of trying to meet raising costs, which are still happening in the food industry, while also really managing customer perception, because the idea of everything raising in price has been here, but if economic data and the spin on it is going to say that things are actually fine and things are, getting cheaper in certain sectors, especially grocery prices, a lot of consumers will probably correlate that restaurant pricing shouldn't be rising as well. I do not envy you if you're a restaurant owner right now. This is probably one of the most difficult times in the last 5 years. The different economic conditions that are hitting consumers, their sentiments, what they think about pricing in general for the food industry. We all know that restaurant pricing is too low already. Like, it's just not sustainable to make really decent margins because of the expectation of cheap food in the country. So to have this happen for restaurants is really, really tough. And like I said, if you're operating a restaurant, I feel terrible, because I suspect this is going to be a very tough time for restaurants because of the shifting dynamics and because of costs having been so high, prices going up, and then consumers spending less because now they're seeing cheaper options that are also very delicious. And this goes back to our conversation, mine and Justin's conversation last week about the Rao's pasta sauce. You really have to be aware of what's going on in and outside of restaurants. What's being sold at grocery stores? What is being offered as a premium meal for customers? Because guess what? The customer that chooses to stay in with a premium pasta sauce and a bottle of wine, those sales were taken away from your business. That is your competition. So being aware, being diligent, and knowing what consumers have in regards to options, I think is highly critical right now if you're a restaurant owner. And, managing price increases, managing your costs, and just really staying on top of that is like crucial, I would think, right now with everything going on. So just something to be aware of, and why I wanted to share that story. So I had shared this. This is going to be from Nation's Restaurant News as well. They had really great coverage of two things I was looking for this week. So this idea of restaurants embracing the return of the third place. So the idea of the third place is basically a place where people would gather and hang out. You look at churches, you look at recreational centers, and you obviously look at restaurants, coffee shops. A place where people can be social, be comfortable, spend time away from home, get work done, chat with others, meet new people. And obviously we had the COVID pandemic that kind of wiped all that out. And so a lot of these brands are looking to basically adopt away from these like digital, sterile, lack of third place concepts back to a place that is warm, welcoming, and engaging, because you see two things. You see you see an increase in sales, and you see an increase in business when you have people actually at your business. And two, it helps fortify brand loyalty. It helps people be more engaged in your coffee shop, in your restaurant, in your quick service concept. So very, very important. So for example, if we look at Starbucks, and this is Nation Restaurants News reporting again, Starbucks and dozens of other brands swiftly adopted digital-first or digital-only prototypes during the pandemic. Now they're revisiting the dining room and its role as a third place. Starbucks is reinvesting in its stores by, for instance, adding more seating and power outlets, serving coffee in ceramic mugs for dining guests, and bringing back Sharpie notes for to-go customers. Their goal at their annual shareholders meeting in March is to reclaim the third place. And I think this is very interesting. Chief Executive Officer Brian Nichols shared this quote: "Imagine coffee houses that are comfortable and warm with expanded seating options, power outlets, and abundant food displays." The company has already begun piloting new designs in select U.S. locations. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. The website also cites Corner Bakery completing renovations at 7 locations, reinforcing its commitment to providing guests with a warm and inviting dinner experience. And looking over at Black Rock Coffee Bar, they're opening a new location in Phoenix with a modern design aimed at ensuring visitors relax, work, and socialize. So what does this mean for you all, for people listening to this podcast? I think it's very important that I think the idea of like fully staffed restaurants coming back is a trend that a lot of these big brands are seeing. The idea that places where people can go to have a good time, to engage socially, to eat good food, to be out and meet new people. And so I think that anything people in the food business can do and the restaurant business can do to invite people in, to have them engaged, to offer them a social network when they come in and dine is really important. I look at stuff like email marketing and social media standing. There's a restaurant near me, Entourage, in the Naperville region, and they send me like emails with my name in them, and they send me offers and different things, and I've gone and claimed those offers and whatnot because I'm being directly marketed to, and I'm aware that it's an email service system, but it's that the little extra bites, the little extra steps businesses are taking to make people feel like they belong to something, that they're a part of something. I think that is very crucial. You're going to see, same with competing with CPG goods away from home, you're going to see this increase in these bigger brands trying to be more cozy, more homey, having people like be inside their stores more. And and this is just my guess. This is an anecdotal guess. I never want to like just make a big assertion as fact. So this is a guess on my end. I feel as in 2025, our society is so polarized. It's so the loneliness epidemic that so many face. I feel like food businesses that welcome people back in, that create engaging environments, that create interactive environments. This idea of the fourth place, where people actually have come to dinner for events or they come to dinner for different themes. I think it's very, very important that independent restaurants and smaller restaurants utilize the strength they have over chain restaurants, and that is that they are a far superior product for third spaces. The independent restaurant is the integral spot to be for when it comes to a third place, because independent restaurants have charm, they have smaller communities, that you're able to know your guests more, you're not as sterile. And so as big brands chase this idea or this concept to get back to more sales and to get back to, strengthen their brand loyalty with their customers, I think it is a miss if local or independent restaurants really don't lean into what they are good at. And that is creating really, complimentary, cozy, and just great social experiences in their restaurants. There's so many small places I go to around me that I go to because I love the vibes of the place. I love the community. I love seeing the people that are cooking. I like saying hi to the owners. All that to be said, it's very, very important to be really, really tuned into your local community, your customer base, what you offer them, and what it feels like to dine at your restaurant or to go to your coffee shop or to eat at your food truck. This idea of the third space I've seen floated a ton. I did some work on this at the beginning of the year for Line Cook Thoughts, and it just keeps popping up. And I really think it's going to be a big, big goal for these bigger brands. And so if you're a smaller restaurant or you're starting a business, a place that can offer social value and social connection is going to win in the long run. So just sharing that because, like I said, I think it's highly important. It's going to be a major win. So QSRmagazine.com shares this article. I thought it was interesting on May 11th. Why fast casual keeps winning and how it's evolving. Again, lessons to be learned here. So QSR says, fast casual has been the fastest growing restaurant segment in the past 20 years. In more traditional price-sensitive environments, casual dining customers trade down to fast casual, and fast casual trades down to QSR, which typically holds up the best. That wasn't the case in 2024. In hindsight, traditional fast food took a lot of price increases without adding value to the guests in terms of a better product, interesting innovation, better service levels, or improved ambiance. Consumers pushed back. And so they go on to say that one theory is in the investment community was that companies like Shake Shack would be disproportionately affected last year due to economic concerns. The chain sells premium burgers, and if it wasn't going to get involved in the dollar wars, the conclusion is that the fast casual's financials would be harmed. The reality is that Shake Shack's occasion is different from a fast food burger. The base conclusion was that value isn't just about price. In Q4, Shake Shack ranked the highest on the Fidelity Index, a tool designed to measure consumer loyalty to brands. The chain offered a free burger with any $10 purchase leading up to Christmas Eve and brought back fan-favorite holiday-themed milkshakes in November. The chocolate Yolog Shake, apple cider donut shake, and Christmas cookie shake. Additionally, after releasing Worth It, a new marketing campaign highlighting premium ingredients, the chain launched Worth It Wednesday, which offered a promotional or free menu item every week from October through December. Shake Shack CEO Rob Lynch says the fast casual segment is at a pivotal moment where adaptability to changing consumer preferences is crucial. He added that economic factors are leading guests to seek affordable dining options, which benefits fast casuals that offer quality at reasonable prices. Shake Shack prides itself on using only the best ingredients at a price point that delivers real value, according to the CEO. And a big part of that is menu innovation. So basically, looking at menu innovation, looking at LTOs, limited time offerings, looking at the different ways that they can add value to a consumer. So the big takeaway is, you look at companies like Chipotle, you look at Shake Shack. These QSRs they're interesting for a couple of reasons. The bet was that during harsher economic times, fast food would win. The McDonald's, the Burger King, the Wendy's. When in reality, QSRs won. Why? Because the thought was that consumers were going to just look for the cheapest option. And for a good amount of people, that is the case. But with people that are having limited financial, or like having financial hardships, but have some wiggle room, are they going for the cheapest option, or are they going for the option that offers the most perceived value at the price point they are comfortable paying? And instead of going for the cheapest option, they went for the option with the most perceived value at the price point they are comfortable paying. So you look at a Shake Shack, you look at a QSR restaurant, you look at all these places. If you offer value commensurate to the price you are charging, people will pay for it. Shake Shack, one of my favorite brands for fast foods, they just have a lot of different cool menu items. It always feels fresh when you go look at their menu. It always feels like there's something new to try, or you're getting really good value from what they have. And in this report, in this article, which I'll share, QSR Magazine shares, they're great at reporting this stuff, is that for these companies, they didn't look at low or raising prices, they looked at cost efficiencies. How do they make their menu more innovative? But while they're innovating, how do they make it more cost efficient? How do they staff differently? How do they focus on their recipes differently, their workloads differently? I think what piqued my interest is this idea of value. And this ties in what we were talking about this entire podcast, is that simply raising a price is one thing, and Justin talked about this last week, but simply raising a price is one thing. Raising a price commensurate to the value you're proposing is really, really important. And if you simply raise or lower prices with no matching understanding of what the value it is you're offering, consumers will not show up. A Shake Shack does so well because even in financial times where you would think they wouldn't, they offer what customers see as very valuable products. They offer these products that are, they taste good, they just fit within budget, and they are what a consumer is looking for. Go back to the pizza conversation, the sauce conversation. $15 jar of sauce. Who's buying that? Someone who doesn't want to spend $30 on dinner, has pasta in the pantry, wants to spend a little bit, they perceive this as value. Let's do that. That is what this article is saying, and that is a big through line in the beginning of 2025. Consumers want value. They will pay money for value. They will give $1 or $2 extra for what they want. Chipotle with its guacamole, Shake Shack with truffle offerings. Like, the value that you are giving to customers is extremely important. And it's not just in restaurants, in all food businesses. If you operate on the idea that you are going to execute on a high value product for what customers are paying for, you will win people over. You will get loyalty. You will find success. If your product is overpriced and under-delivers, or if your prices are really low, but it's still not worth it to someone, they will not buy it. So being focused on the value you offer in your products, being focused on what customers are willing to spend, all crucial and critical to the success of your business. All right. Those are the biggest news points for this week's Repertoire Report. I quickly wanted to talk about just a few things that are on my mind. First is Mother's Day. Mother's Day was Sunday. First off, shout out to my mom. Thank you for everything you've done in my life. Love you a ton, and you're one of the biggest reasons for me to be a chef. Shout out to all the moms out there, especially mothers working in the industry. I have the utmost respect. That being said, Mother's Day is one of the craziest restaurant days in the year. Probably the craziest day. I remember when I was working for a restaurant group, I was a manager in training. And I remember on the one Mother's Day I was working, it was in Midtown Manhattan. And that day we had like 4 people call out. So at the end of the day, as the shift started, it was a manager for me. It was myself and 2 other people covering a line and covering 200 plus covers that morning for brunch. Absolutely insane. One of the most insane services of my life. It was equal to the 14-hour New Year's Eve service I did in 2018. Insane. And so I just wanted to say I respect everyone that works on Mother's Day, but I especially respect anyone in the food industry that works on Mother's Day. Some crazy stuff out there. Yeah, Mother's Day work is just insane. It's not something I envy, and it's just crazy. And I had posted about this on the Repertoire TikTok. Go check it out. And Daniel Walker shares, mercy on anyone who's working food service today. I remember my first time as a server with a Mother's Day after a church crowd. None of the other holidays prepared me for how brutal it was. Yes, very brutal. So thank you. Congrats to everyone that survived this weekend, and salute to you for working one of the most excruciating and brutal shifts there is in the restaurant industry. What I'm looking at the week ahead, I'm excited for Justin to get back because we will have some an interesting topic that I think you'll be very excited to hear about. But for me this week, really looking into just different offerings at the grocery store. I'm really intrigued by this idea of what CPG is offering to consumers. I've noticed a lot of different things. My girlfriend went shopping to Trader Joe's this morning, and gluten-free pastas and these like premium like cheese spreads and all these different things. There's just so much right now. And I just see all of this and I'm just like, the private label game of supermarkets, the ability for all these brands to create premium products, it's all here, and it's all competing with restaurants, and I find it fascinating. Been trying different things. I've been kind of floating the idea of trying some of these premium items on the TikTok to give my expert review, and I actually think that'll be fun. Yeah, it's just wild. It's wild to see. And if you're in the restaurant industry and you haven't like gone and looked down a Target aisle or anything like that, go check it out because it's super important to focus on and recognize. I think that my biggest takeaway from 2025, from all the reporting I'm reading, is that consumers are going to spend less at restaurants and more at grocery stores to achieve those same premium meals. And I think it's something that's not being talked about enough. And you're going to hear me talk about it a ton over the next few months. This idea of buying premium, but to eat at home, and it's not takeout, it's actually having a little bit of preparation yourself, and having that option from a grocery store is huge, and it's I see it being a big factor. I think in a year, this is something that National Restaurant Association is going to be reporting on. I think it's something that we're going to see trends in the food industry for 2026 say. I think this is a big story that just hasn't hit because of everything else going on. Some people have talked about it, but don't underestimate what premium items consumers are seeing. What else is cool about premium items at grocery stores is these companies have utilized their data, utilized their research to find out what consumers are interested in. Pull from them, take ideas, focus on those ideas, make them in your restaurants. Very important. I think the last thing I'm interested in is the announcement of The Bear, the new season coming out. I'll be honest, Justin's really good at keeping up with The Bear. I have not watched The Bear since season 1. Was a little scarred by it, to be honest. So I have a lot of catching up to do, especially since I hear they've all been great. I am really interested to see, how the last 2 episodes have stacked up. And to go into this one. It's so interesting. I find myself more and more for food media wanting to watch like cooking, like demonstrations. I really enjoyed the Chef's Table series recently. The one with Jose Andres, with Alice Waters, with Thomas Keller. I really enjoy those. There was a sense of nostalgia, a sense of relearning, stuff like that. And for me, the drama stuff is interesting. I think The Bear has some awesome moments, but I am so behind, and Justin's probably going to kill me. So that's some homework for me this week, is to watch the Bears seasons. But beyond that, just this idea of what has been interesting me for food media. And so I'd love to hear what's also interesting you guys. Leave it in the comments or, message us on Instagram. But that's basically what I'm looking at for this week. So with that being said, some key takeaways. Value, super important for restaurants, especially in a time when consumers are finding it either at your restaurant or at the grocery store. You're competing with grocery stores, so you need to decide how you're going to address that. 2, Next Door by Wegmans, sushi restaurant in New York City. How will they succeed? Why is a multi-million-dollar grocery brand opening standalone sushi restaurants in a very saturated market? Would love to get Justin's take on that. 3, McDonald's planning to hire all these employees. Watching that, seeing how that correlates to the summer, and that's going to be a key indicator for restaurant success in general after we see how this works out for McDonald's. Prices going up, the return of the third space, and of course, why fast casual keeps on winning. Listen, this has been really awesome so far. I love this new format. Repertoire, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube. Obviously, if you're listening on a podcast app, we're on different podcast platforms. Going to subscribe and follow on all those places will keep you up to date. I share different content across the apps. Want to keep it fun. I want to add some cool things in the next few months for sure. So if you're not following on TikTok or Instagram, go there and watch and follow along. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, go ahead. We'll be sharing some broken out clips, getting more targeted on different topics. And as always, just thank you for spending the time to listen. I know that time is valuable, especially in the food industry. So to hear me break down what I find interesting in the industry this week, I feel honored. So thank you all for listening. Please subscribe, like, share, and whatever else you feel. Love the feedback we got from the last episode. So any feedback, positive or negative, please send our way. We only want to get better. And I'll see you on the next Repertoire Report. Have a good day, everyone.